Good morning. In my last lecture, I discussed about the function of a computer, history of the computer, generations of computers and other concepts. And I started with an introduction to functional units of a digital computer. Any computer you take, whether it's a microcomputer, mini computer, mainframe computer, or it may be a supercomputer, it consisting of 5 blocks. Each block performs one particular function. The 5 parts of a digital computer are, it could be an input unit, it could be an output unit, an arithmetic logic unit, a memory unit and a control unit. The first unit, input unit, sends the data and the corresponding instruction to the computer. For example, if you enter some number through the keyboard, the corresponding number you entered will first pass from your keyboard to the memory unit, so that your data is stored in the memory unit. The memory unit not only stores the data, but it also stores the corresponding program. There are basically 2 types of memory unit. The memory unit stores data and the instruction sent by the user for further processing by ALU. In sometimes in between we need to store some intermediate results. That intermediate result is also stored in the memory unit. The memory unit consists of number of rows. Each row we call it as one cell. In each cell we can store one instruction or one data. How do you identify in which cell our data is stored? For that, every location is given some unique number. The unique number we call it as the address of the memory cell. Next time, if you want to refer that particular location, you have to give its address. How much information we can store it in the memory of a computer? ನನ್ನ ಕಂಪ್ಯೂಟರ್ ಮೆಮೊರಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಎಷ್ಟು ಇನ್ಫಾರ್ಮೇಷನ್ನ ಸ್ಟೋರ್ ಆಗಿದೆ ಅನ್ನೋದಕ್ಕೆ ಹೇಳೋದಕ್ಕೆ ನಾವು ಕೆಲವುದು ಯೂನಿಟ್ಸ್ನ ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ. ಇಟ್ ಕುಡ್ ಬಿ ಎ ಮೆಗಾಬೈಟ್, ಗಿಗಾಬೈಟ್ಸ್, ಕಿಲೋಬೈಟ್ಸ್ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಸೋ ಆನ್. I will come to that what is the unit for megabyte, gigabyte, how that is measured in the next slide. Basically, in any computer system, we have 2 types of memory. It's a primary memory or it's a secondary memory. But if you simply say the word memory, it always refers to primary memory. ನಾನು ಸುಮ್ಮನೆ ಮೆಮೊರಿ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದರೆ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಸೆಕೆಂಡರಿ ಮೆಮೊರಿ ಇರೋದಿಲ್ಲ, ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಕನ್ಸಿಡರ್ ಆಗುವುದು ಪ್ರೈಮರಿ ಮೆಮೊರಿ ಮಾತ್ರ. ಪ್ರೈಮರಿ ಮೆಮೊರಿ ಈಸ್ ವೋಲಟೈಲ್ ಆರ್ ಟೆಂಪರರಿ ಇನ್ ನೇಚರ್. ಯಾವುದಾದ್ರೂ ಮಾಹಿತಿ ಅಥವಾ ದತ್ತವನ್ನು ಪ್ರೈಮರಿ ಮೆಮೊರಿನಲ್ಲಿ ಹಾಕಿಟ್ರೆ ಅದು ಪವರ್ ಸಪ್ಲೈ ಇರುವ ತನಕ ಮಾತ್ರ ಅದರ ಕಂಟೆಂಟ್ ಹಾಗೇ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. ಒಂದು ಸತಿ ಪವರ್ನ ಸ್ವಿಚ್ ಆಫ್ ಮಾಡಿದ ತಕ್ಷಣ ಅದರೊಳಗಿರೋ ಕಂಪ್ಲೀಟ್ ಕಂಟೆಂಟು ಎರೇಸ್ ಆಗಿಬಿಡುತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ದ ಇನ್ಫಾರ್ಮೇಷನ್ ಸ್ಟೋರ್ಡ್ ಇನ್ ಯುವರ್ ಪ್ರೈಮರಿ ಮೆಮೊರಿ ಗೆಟ್ಸ್ ಎರೇಸ್ಡ್ ಆಸ್ ಸೂನ್ ಆಸ್ ಯು ಟರ್ನ್ ಆಫ್ ಯುವರ್ ಕಂಪ್ಯೂಟರ್. ಪ್ರೈಮರಿ ಮೆಮೊರಿ ಈಸ್ ವೆರಿ ವೆರಿ ಕಾಸ್ಟ್ಲಿ. ಅಟ್ ದ ಸೇಮ್ ಟೈಮ್ ಇಟ್ಸ್ ವೋಲಟೈಲ್ ಇನ್ ನೇಚರ್. ದಟ್ ಮೀನ್ಸ್ ಅದು ನಾವು ಹೆಚ್ಚು ದುಡ್ಡು ಕೊಟ್ಟು ತೊಗೊಳ್ಬೇಕು. ಅದಲ್ಲದೆ ಅದರೊಳಗೆ ಸ್ಟೋರ್ ಆಗಿರೋ ಇನ್ಫಾರ್ಮೇಷನ್ನು ಕಂಪ್ಯೂಟರ್ ಆಫ್ ಮಾಡಿದ ತಕ್ಷಣ ಎರೇಸ್ ಆಗಿಬಿಡುತ್ತೆ. ದೆನ್ ವಾಟ್ ಈಸ್ ದ ನೀಡ್ ಫಾರ್ ಪ್ರೈಮರಿ ಮೆಮೊರಿ? ವೈ ಯು ವಾಂಟ್ ಪ್ರೈಮರಿ ಮೆಮೊರಿ? ಇಟ್ಸ್ ವೆರಿ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪೆನ್ಸಿವ್ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಇಟ್ಸ್ ವೋಲಟೈಲ್ ಇನ್ ನೇಚರ್. ಮತ್ತು ಪ್ರೈಮರಿ ಮೆಮೊರಿ ಏನಕ್ಕೆ ಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ, ಅರ್ಥಮೆಟಿಕ್ ಲಾಜಿಕ್ ಯೂನಿಟ್ ಫೆಚ್ ದ ಡೇಟಾ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ದ ಇನ್ಸ್ಟ್ರಕ್ಷನ್ ಓನ್ಲಿ ಇಫ್ ಇಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಸ್ಟೋರ್ಡ್ ಇನ್ ದ ಪ್ರೈಮರಿ ಮೆಮೊರಿ. ಪ್ರೈಮರಿ ಮೆಮೊರಿಲಿ ಇರುವ ಡೇಟಾನ ಮಾತ್ರ ಅರ್ಥಮೆಟಿಕ್ ಲಾಜಿಕ್ ಯೂನಿಟ್ ಆಕ್ಸೆಸ್ ಮಾಡೋದಕ್ಕೆ ಅವಕಾಶ ಇದೆ. ಅದು ನಿಮ್ಮ ಸೆಕೆಂಡರಿ ಮೆಮೊರಿಲಿ ಇದ್ದರೆ ಅದನ್ನು ಅರ್ಥಮೆಟಿಕ್ ಲಾಜಿಕ್ ಯೂನಿಟ್ ಆಕ್ಸೆಸ್ ಮಾಡೋದಕ್ಕೆ ಬರೋದಿಲ್ಲ. ಪ್ರೈಮರಿ ಮೆಮೊರಿ ಈಸ್ ಆಲ್ಸೋ ನೋನ್ ಆಸ್ ಮೈನ್ ಮೆಮೊರಿ. ನಾನು ಮೊದಲೇ ಹೇಳಿದಾಗೆ ಪ್ರೈಮರಿ ಮೆಮೊರಿ ಈಸ್ ವೆರಿ ಫಾಸ್ಟ್ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ವೆರಿ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪೆನ್ಸಿವ್. ಪ್ರೈಮರಿ ಮೆಮೊರಿ ಬೇಸಿಕಲಿ ದೇರ್ ಆರ್ ಟೂ ಟೈಪ್ಸ್. ಪ್ರೈಮರಿ ಮೆಮೊರಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಎರಡು ವಿಧಗಳಿದೆ. ಒಂದು ರ್ಯಾಮ್, ಇಟ್ ಸ್ಟ್ಯಾಂಡ್ ಫಾರ್ ರ್ಯಾಂಡಮ್ ಆಕ್ಸೆಸ್ ಮೆಮೊರಿ. ಮತ್ತೊಂದು ರಾಮ್, ರೀಡ್ ಓನ್ಲಿ ಮೆಮೊರಿ. As the name indicates, in the case of random access memory, you can access the content of any location directly. Suppose your data is stored in 10th location, or whether it is stored in 100th location, or whether the data is stored in 1000th location, directly you can go to that location. You need not pass through all the previous locations. 10ನೇ ಲೊಕೇಶನ್ ಹೋಗೋದಕ್ಕೆ ಎಷ್ಟು ಸಮಯ ಬೇಕೋ 100ನೇ ಲೊಕೇಶನ್ಗೆ ಹೋಗೋದಕ್ಕೂ ಅಷ್ಟೇ ಸಮಯ ಬೇಕು. And in the case of random access memory, you can write your own data, or whatever information already stored, you can retrieve it also. So both reading and writing is possible in the case of random access memory. ಈ ಮೆಮೊರಿ ಯೂಸರ್ಗೆ ಅವೈಲಬಿಲಿಟಿ ಇದೆ. ಯಾಕಂದರೆ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಇದು ಯೂಸರ್ಗೆ ಸಿಕ್ಕುವುದರಿಂದ ಯೂಸರ್ ಅವನಿಗೆ ಬೇಕಾಗಿರೋ ಇನ್ಫಾರ್ಮೇಷನ್ನು, ಡೇಟಾ ಎಲ್ಲನೂ ರ್ಯಾಮಲ್ಲಿ ಇಟ್ಕೋಬೋದು. ಬಟ್ ದ ರ್ಯಾಮ್ ಈಸ್ ವೋಲಟೈಲ್ ಇನ್ ನೇಚರ್. Whatever the information stored in the RAM gets erased as soon as the computer is turned off. ರ್ಯಾಮ್ನಲ್ಲಿ ಸ್ಟೋರ್ ಆಗಿರುವ ಇನ್ಫಾರ್ಮೇಷನ್ನು ಕಂಪ್ಯೂಟರ್ ಆಫ್ ಮಾಡಿದ ಮರುಗಳಿಗೇನೆ ಅದರೊಳಗಿರೋ ಎಲ್ಲ ಇನ್ಫಾರ್ಮೇಷನ್ನು ಅಳಿಸಿ ಹೋಗುತ್ತೆ. ಅದನ್ನು ನಾವು ಪ್ರಿಸರ್ವ್ ಮಾಡೋದಕ್ಕೆ ಸಾಧ್ಯವಿಲ್ಲ. ರ್ಯಾಮ್ ಎರಡು ವಿಧ. ಒಂದು ಸ್ಟ್ಯಾಟಿಕ್ ರ್ಯಾಮ್ ಆರ್ ಡೈನಮಿಕ್ ರ್ಯಾಮ್. RAM, there are two types. One is static RAM, or it could be a dynamic RAM. Static RAM retains the information as long as the power supply is there. Power supply ಒಂದು ಸತಿ ಆಫ್ ಮಾಡಿದ ತಕ್ಷಣನೇ the content of the complete static RAM gets erased. But dynamic RAM loses the information even though power supply is there frequently. Power supply ಇದ್ರೂ ಕೂಡ ಮಧ್ಯೆ ಮಧ್ಯೆ ಅದರೊಳಗಿರೋ ಇನ್ಫಾರ್ಮೇಷನ್ ಎರೇಸ್ ಆಗ್ತಿರುತ್ತೆ. For that, to avoid that one, the content of the RAM should be refreshed periodically. The difference between a static RAM and a dynamic RAM is very cheap and consumes less power, whereas static RAM is very expensive and consumes more power. Primary memory ಎರಡನೇ ವಿಧ read only memory, or also stands for ROM. Here the information is already written by the manufacturers. ಕಂಪ್ಯೂಟರ್ನ ಯೂಸೇಜ್ಗೆ ಬೇಕಾಗಿರುವ ಕೆಲವು ಉಪಯುಕ್ತ ಹಾಗೂ ತುಂಬ ಅಮೂಲ್ಯವಾದ ಇನ್ಫಾರ್ಮೇಷನ್ನ ರಾಮಿನಲ್ಲಿ ಮ್ಯಾನುಫ್ಯಾಕ್ಚರ್ ಅವರೇ ಹಾಕಿ ಕಳಿಸಿರ್ತಾರೆ. ಸೊ ದ ಕಂಟೆಂಟ್ ಆಫ್ ದ ರಾಮ್ ದ ಯೂಸರ್ ಕ್ಯಾನಾಟ್ ಆಲ್ಟರ್. ಇನ್ ರ್ಯಾಮ್ ಓನ್ಲಿ ಇನ್ಫಾರ್ಮೇಷನ್ ಸ್ಟೋರ್ಡ್ ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಬಿ ಜಸ್ಟ್ ರೆಡ್. ಯು ಕ್ಯಾನಾಟ್ ಸ್ಟೋರ್ ಎ ನ್ಯೂ ಇನ್ಫಾರ್ಮೇಷನ್ ಇನ್ ಟು ರ್ಯಾಮ್. ನೀವು ರಾಮ್ಗೆ ಹೊಸದಾಗಿ ಇನ್ಫಾರ್ಮೇಷನ್ ಆ್ಯಡ್ ಮಾಡೋದಕ್ಕೆ ಸಾಧ್ಯ ಇಲ್ಲ. ಆಲ್ರೆಡಿ ರಾಮಲ್ಲಿ ಯಾವ ಮಾಹಿತಿ ಸ್ಟೋರ್ ಆಗಿರುತ್ತೆ ಅದನ್ನು ವಿ ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ರಿಟ್ರೀವ್ ಇಟ್, ವಿ ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ರೀಡ್ ಇಟ್. ದೆನ್ ವಾಟ್ ಈಸ್ ದ ನೀಡ್ ಫಾರ್ ರಾಮ್? ರಾಮ್ ಕಂಟೈನ್ಸ್ ದ ಇನ್ಫಾರ್ಮೇಷನ್ ನೆಸೆಸರಿ ಫಾರ್ ಪ್ರಾಪರ್ ಫಂಕ್ಷನಿಂಗ್ ಆಫ್ ಎ ಕಂಪ್ಯೂಟರ್ ಸಿಸ್ಟಮ್. ಕಂಪ್ಯೂಟರ್ ಸಿಸ್ಟಮ್ ಅದರ ಕಾರ್ಯವನ್ನು ನಿರ್ವಹಿಸಲು ಬೇಕಾಗಿರುವ ಕೆಲವು ಉಪಯುಕ್ತ ಮಾಹಿತಿಗಳನ್ನು ರಾಮಿನಲ್ಲಿ ಮ್ಯಾನುಫ್ಯಾಕ್ಚರರೇ ಸ್ಟೋರ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಕಳಿಸಿರ್ತಾರೆ. Types of ROM. ROM basically there are three types. One is PROM, EPROM, EEPROM. PROM stands for Programmable Read Only Memory. So here the user can add the information only once. PROM-ನಲ್ಲಿ ಒಂದು ಸತಿ ಇನ್ಫಾರ್ಮೇಷನ್ನ ಸ್ಟೋರ್ ಮಾಡಿದ ಮೇಲೆ ಅದರ ಕಂಟೆಂಟು ಇನ್ನು ಎರೇಸ್ ಮಾಡೋದು ಸಾಧ್ಯವಿಲ್ಲ. So you can write the information only once, but you can read the information many times. Next, erasable programmable read only memory. Here you write the information into PROM. If you want, you can erase it, write the new content. If you want to, you can erase it. So you can write the information any number of times by erasing the previous content. ಅದರೊಳಗೆ ಸ್ಟೋರ್ ಆಗಿರೋ ಇನ್ಫಾರ್ಮೇಷನ್ ಮತ್ತೆ ಮತ್ತೆ ಅಳಿಸಿ ಹೊಸ ಇನ್ಫಾರ್ಮೇಷನ್ ಅದರೊಳಗೆ ದಾಖಲಿಸ್ಕೋಬೋದು ಈ ಪ್ರಾಮಲ್ಲಿ. ಎರೇಸಬಲ್ ಪ್ರೋಗ್ರಾಮಬಲ್ ರೀಡ್ ಓನ್ಲಿ ಮೆಮರಿ. ಹೌ ಟು ಎರೇಸ್ ದ ಕಂಟೆಂಟ್ ಆಫ್ ಈ ಪ್ರಾಮ್? ಈ ಪ್ರಾಮಿನಲ್ಲಿ ಸ್ಟೋರ್ ಆಗಿರೋ ಇನ್ಫಾರ್ಮೇಷನ್ ಯಾವ ರೀತಿ ಅಳಿಸುವುದು? ದ ಇನ್ಫಾರ್ಮೇಷನ್ ಸ್ಟೋರ್ಡ್ ಇನ್ ಯುವರ್ ಈ ಪ್ರಾಮ್ ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಬಿ ಎರೇಸ್ಡ್ by exposing it to ultraviolet rays or by passing high electricity. If you erase the content of the PROM by passing electrical current, it's called as electrically erasable programmable read only memory. ಎಲೆಕ್ಟ್ರಿಕಲ್ ಕರೆಂಟ್ನ ಪಾಸ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಅಳಿಸುವ ಅಂತ ರಾಮ್ಗೆ EEPROM ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೆ. This is the typical structure of your RAM. ಮೆಮೊರಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಎರಡು ವಿಧ, ಒಂದು ಪ್ರೈಮರಿ ಮೆಮೊರಿ, ಇನ್ನೊಂದು ಸೆಕೆಂಡರಿ ಮೆಮೊರಿ. ಪ್ರೈಮರಿ ಮೆಮೊರಿ ಈಸ್ ವೋಲಟೈಲ್ ಇನ್ ನೇಚರ್. ಪ್ರೈಮರಿ ಮೆಮೊರಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಸ್ಟೋರ್ ಆಗಿರುವ ಇನ್ಫಾರ್ಮೇಷನ್ನು ಪವರ್ ಸಪ್ಲೈ ಇರುವ ತನಕ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. ಒಂದು ಸತಿ ಕಂಪ್ಯೂಟರ್ನ ಸ್ವಿಚ್ ಆಫ್ ಮಾಡಿದರೆ ದ ಕಂಪ್ಲೀಟ್ ಕಂಟೆಂಟ್ ಆಫ್ ಪ್ರೈಮರಿ ಮೆಮೊರಿ ಗೆಟ್ಸ್ ಎರೇಸ್ಡ್. ಇಫ್ ಯು ವಾಂಟ್ ಟು ಸ್ಟೋರ್ ಯುವರ್ ಇನ್ಫಾರ್ಮೇಷನ್ ಪರ್ಮನೆಂಟ್ಲಿ, then it has to be transferred from the primary memory to secondary memory. ಪ್ರೈಮರಿ ಮೆಮೊರಿನಲ್ಲಿ ದಾಖಲಿಸಿರುವಂಥ ಮಾಹಿತಿಯನ್ನು ಸೆಕೆಂಡರಿ ಮೆಮೊರಿಗೆ ವರ್ಗಾಯಿಸಿದಲ್ಲಿ ಆ ಇನ್ಫಾರ್ಮೇಷನ್ನು ಪರ್ಮನೆಂಟ್ ಆಗಿ ಉಳ್ಕೊಳ್ಳುತ್ತೆ. ದಟ್ಸ್ ಅ ರೀಸನ್ secondary memory is non-volatile in nature. The content will not get erased even after the power is turned off. But ನಿಮ್ಮ ಒಂದು ಮಾಹಿತಿ ಸೆಕೆಂಡರಿ ಮೆಮೊರಿನಲ್ಲಿ ಸ್ಟೋರ್ ಆಗಿದ್ದರೆ ಅದನ್ನು ಅರ್ಥಮೆಟಿಕ್ ಲಾಜಿಕ್ ಯೂನಿಟು ಆಕ್ಸೆಸ್ ಮಾಡಲು ಬರುವುದಿಲ್ಲ. ಬಿಕಾಸ್ ದ ಅರ್ಥಮೆಟಿಕ್ ಲಾಜಿಕ್ ಯೂನಿಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಕನೆಕ್ಟೆಡ್ ಟು ಪ್ರೈಮರಿ ಮೆಮೊರಿ. ಸೊ ಇಫ್ ಯು ವಾಂಟ್ ಟು ಆಕ್ಸೆಸ್ ದ ಕಂಟೆಂಟ್, ದೆನ್ ದ ಇನ್ಫಾರ್ಮೇಷನ್ ಫ್ರಮ್ ದ ಸೆಕೆಂಡರಿ ಮೆಮೊರಿ should be transformed to primary memory, then we can access the content. Arithmetic logic unit cannot directly access the secondary memory. That's the reason secondary memory we call it as an auxiliary memory, additional memory, extra memory. Compared to primary memory, secondary memory is cheap, but it works slower than the primary memory. ಸೆಕೆಂಡರಿ ಮೆಮೊರಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಇರುವ ಕಂಟೆಂಟ್ನ ಪ್ರೈಮರಿ ಮೆಮೊರಿಗೆ ಟ್ರಾನ್ಸ್ಫರ್ ಮಾಡುವಂತಹ ಒಂದು ವಿಧಾನಕ್ಕೆ ವಿ ಕಾಲ್ ಇಟ್ ಆಸ್ ಲೋಡಿಂಗ್. ದ ಇನ್ಫಾರ್ಮೇಷನ್ ಸ್ಟೋರ್ಡ್ ಇನ್ ದ ಪ್ರೈಮರಿ ಮೆಮೊರಿ ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಬಿ ಟ್ರಾನ್ಸ್ಫರ್ಡ್ ಟು ಸೆಕೆಂಡರಿ ಮೆಮೊರಿ ಫಾರ್ ಪರ್ಮನೆಂಟ್ ಸ್ಟೋರೇಜ್. ಸೊ ದಟ್ ಪ್ರಾಸೆಸ್ ಆಫ್ ಸೆಂಡಿಂಗ್ ದ ಕಂಟೆಂಟ್ ಆಫ್ ಪ್ರೈಮರಿ ಮೆಮೊರಿ ಟು ಸೆಕೆಂಡರಿ ಮೆಮೊರಿ ವಿ ಕಾಲ್ ಇಟ್ ಆಸ್ ಸೇವಿಂಗ್. Secondary memory, there are two types. One, it is made up of a magnetic material, or it's made up of an optical type. Some of the examples of secondary memory are, it could be a hard disk, it could be a floppy disk, a compact disk, it's also called as CDs, DVD, etc. These are the different examples of secondary memory. Whatever information is stored in all these secondary memory is permanent in nature. Once the information is stored, it cannot be erased. But you cannot do any calculation if your data is in secondary memory directly. Magnetic storage devices, magnetic secondary storage device can be either random access or it could be a sequential access. In the case of random access, if you want to store the information stored in your secondary memory, we can directly go to that particular point and access it. ನಿಮಗೆ ಬೇಕಾಗಿರುವ ಮಾಹಿತಿ ಸೆಕೆಂಡರಿ ಮ್ಯಾಗ್ನೆಟಿಕ್ ರ್ಯಾಂಡಮ್ ಆಕ್ಸೆಸ್ನ ಯಾವುದೇ ಒಂದು ಮೂಲೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ಆ ಇನ್ಫಾರ್ಮೇಷನ್ ಇದ್ದರೂ ಕೂಡ ದ ಟೈಮ್ ಟು ಆಕ್ಸೆಸ್ ಈಸ್ ಸೇಮ್. ಇಟ್ ನೆವರ್ ಡಿಪೆಂಡ್ಸ್ ಆನ್ ಇನ್ ವಿಚ್ ಪೊಸಿಷನ್ ಯುವರ್ ಡೇಟಾ ಯುವರ್ ಇನ್ಫಾರ್ಮೇಷನ್ ಈಸ್ ಸ್ಟೋರ್ಡ್. ಜಸ್ಟ್ ಲೈಕ್ ಆಡಿಯೋ ಕ್ಯಾಸೆಟ್. ನಿಮ್ಮ ಆಡಿಯೋ ಕ್ಯಾಸೆಟ್ನಲ್ಲಿ ಮೂರನೇ ಹಾಡನ್ನು ನೀವು ಕೇಳಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ಡೈರೆಕ್ಟಾಗಿ ಮೂರನೇ ಹಾಡಿಗೆ ಹೋಗೋಕ್ಕಾಗಲ್ಲ. ಫಸ್ಟ್ ಹಾಡು, ಎರಡನೇ ಹಾಡು ಕೇಳಿದ ನಂತರ ಮೂರನೇ ಹಾಡಿಗೆ ಬರ್ಬೋದು. ದಟ್ಸ್ ವೈ ದಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಬೇಸ್ಡ್, ಇಟ್ಸ್ ಕಾಲ್ಡ್ ಆಸ್ ಎ ಸೀಕ್ವೆನ್ಷಿಯಲ್ ಆಕ್ಸೆಸ್ ಡಿವೈಸ್. A magnetic tape is a sequential access storage device. Here, the next information can be accessed only after accessing all the previous data. So, directly you cannot go to the particular position. Whereas, your magnetic disk is a random access storage. ಅದು ಹೆಸರೇ ತಿಳಿಸುವಂತೆ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಆ ಇನ್ಫಾರ್ಮೇಷನ್ ಯಾವುದೇ ಮೂಲೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ಇದ್ದರೂ ಕೂಡ ಡೈರೆಕ್ಟಾಗಿ ಆ ಒಂದು ಪೊಸಿಷನ್ಗೆ ಹೋಗಿ ಅದರೊಳಗಿರೋ ಇನ್ಫಾರ್ಮೇಷನ್ನ ವಿ ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಆಕ್ಸೆಸ್ ಇಟ್, ಜಸ್ಟ್ ಲೈಕ್ ಯುವರ್ ಕಾಂಪ್ಯಾಕ್ಟ್ ಡಿಸ್ಕ್ ಆರ್ ಸಿ ಡಿ. ಸಿ ಡಿನಲ್ಲಿ ಡೈರೆಕ್ಟಾಗಿ ಇಫ್ ಯು ವಾಂಟ್ ಯು ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಗೋ ಟು ದ ಥರ್ಡ್ ಸಾಂಗ್, ಫ್ರಮ್ ದ ಥರ್ಡ್ ಸಾಂಗ್ ಯು ಕ್ಯಾನ್ skip to the 8th song, from the 8th song we can come back to first song. There is no rule that if you want to hear the 6th song you have to forward all the first 5 songs. So there is an option for directly going to the particular point. That's why it's called as a random access storage device. Some of the examples of magnetic storage devices are floppy disk, hard disk, etc. A floppy disk is a secondary storage device that is made up of circular piece of thin flexible magnetic material. Since that magnetic storage media is very flexible in nature, it's called as a floppy disk. So if you want to insert your floppy or if you want to read the content of your floppy, then the floppy should be inserted in a drive called floppy disk drive. It's already short formed as FDD. You can write the information into the floppy or information stored in the floppy you can read it also. So both reading operation and the writing operation is possible in the case of floppy disk. Floppy disks comes in different sizes with different storage capacity. The first type is 5.2 inch size floppy. It is coated with the information can be stored in only one side and its storage capacity is 160 kilobytes. Next one is 5.25 double sided floppy. Its storage capacity is double that one, 360 kilobytes. Another type of 5.2 inch floppy, it's a double sided double density. Its storage capacity is 1.2 megabytes. Later a smaller size floppy disk came into picture. Its size is 3.5 inch. It is created in the year 1987 and its storage capacity is up to 1.44 megabytes of information can be stored there. Some of the brands where the floppy disks are manufactured are Amkete, Sony, 3M, Imation, etc. But nowadays floppy disk is an obsolete secondary storage device. Secondary floppy disk na secondary storage agi use ಮಾಡುವ ಕಾಲ ಮುಗಿದು ಹೋಗಿದೆ. The price of your floppy disk, it's hardly cost one floppy, it hardly cost 12 rupees to 15 rupees. This is the structure of your floppy disk. This is the area, it's called as magnetic area. You should not expose it to the light. This is the structure of 3.5 inch floppy. This is the drive where we can insert our floppy and we can remove it. If you want to read the content also or if you want to write the new information also, you should insert your floppy in the floppy disk drive. The next secondary storage device is your hard disk. Why it's called as a hard disk is it is different from the floppy disk because floppy disk is very flexible in nature and the floppy disk can be inserted into the floppy drive or we can remove it whenever you want it. Whereas a hard disk is a non-removable disk in a computer. It's always put it inside your cabin. So the storage capacity of your hard disk is much more than the floppy disk and the information stored in your hard disk can be accessed faster than or quicker than the same information stored in your floppy disk. So the access time is less in the case of hard disk when compared to floppy disk. The storage capacity of the hard disk, it varies from 40 gigabytes to more than 2 terabytes. It consists of one or more circular platters. On the both side also we can store, or you can one side also we can record your data. And the information stored on any of the plotter can be read using read or write head. And the plotter rotates with a speed of 5400 to 7200 rotations per minute. That's when we call it as RPM, rotations per minute. That indicate the speed of data access. Your hard disk is divided into so many circles. Each circle we call it as a track, and each circle is further divided into smaller pieces. That one we call it as one sector. ಈ ಚಿತ್ರದಲ್ಲಿ ತೋರಿಸಿರುವಂತೆ ಹಳದಿ ಬಣ್ಣದಲ್ಲಿರುವ ಸರ್ಕಲ್ಲು ಟ್ರ್ಯಾಕ್ಸ್, ನೀಲಿ ಬಣ್ಣದಲ್ಲಿ ತೋರಿಸಿರುವಂಥದ್ದು ಸೆಕ್ಟರ್ಸ್. The next secondary storage, it's one of the most popular and ಹೆಚ್ಚು ಪ್ರಚಲಿತ ಇರುವಂತಹ secondary storage ಸಾಧನ. It's called as a pen drive, or it's also called as flash disk. The next secondary storage is your compact disk, or it's also called as commonly by the name CDs. CD was initially developed for storing audio songs or audio tracks in the year 1983. With the advent of CD, the storage cost was drastically reduced. So nowadays we can buy a CD even at the price of 10 rupees per CD also. And your common disk CD's common diameter is 120 millimeter. So the structure of your typical CD. So it's made up of 1.2 mm thick disc of polycarbonate plastic material coated with a thin layer of super purity aluminum material. CDs can store both audio data, or it can also store the video data. The CDs which stores audio data, we call it as audio CD. The CD which stores the pictures, we call it as pictures of the movie, we call it as a video CD. So this is the CD drive, typical structure of your CD drive. Basically there are two types of CDs. One is write once and read many times. You write the information into the CD. Once the information is stored into the CD, that's all. You cannot erase the content, but we can read the content n number of times. You can read the content any number of times. ಒಂದು ಸತಿ ಇನ್ಫಾರ್ಮೇಷನ್ ಮಾಹಿತಿನ ಇಂಥ ಒಂದು ಸಿಡಿನಲ್ಲಿ ಸ್ಟೋರ್ ಮಾಡಿದ ನಂತರ ಅದನ್ನು ಅಳಿಸಲು ಬರುವುದಿಲ್ಲ. ಬಟ್ ಅದರ ಸ್ಟೋರ್ ಆಗಿರುವ ಇನ್ಫಾರ್ಮೇಷನ್ನ ಎಷ್ಟು ಸತಿ ಬೇಕಾದರೂ ನಾವು ಓದ್ಕೋಬಹುದು. ಬಟ್ ದೇರ್ ಆರ್ ಸೆಕೆಂಡ್ ಟೈಪ್ ಆಫ್ CD is we can write the data. If you want, you can erase it, rewrite, erase it. So such a CD we call it as a rewritable CD. Again, next optical storage device whose storage capacity is much more than your compact disk is DVD, digital versatile disk. They are usually used for storing movies, because movies takes more space. So one single movie you cannot store it in one single CD. The storage capacity of the DVD is 4.7 gigabytes, whereas the storage capacity of your CD is only 600 MB. So that means one single DVD can store almost 25 times more information than the CD. Now we will conclude what is the major differences between a primary memory and a secondary memory. Primary memory is volatile in nature. That means whatever information you store it in your primary memory gets erased when the moment you switch off your computer. Whereas information stored in the secondary memory is non-volatile or also permanent in nature. You cannot erase the information will not be erased even when you switch off your computer. Primary memory is very costly, secondary memory is very cheap. Primary memory is always a part of your central processing unit. So central processing unit consists of memory unit, arithmetic logic unit and the control unit. So that memory which is a part of your CPU is always primary memory, but secondary memory is not a part of your CPU. Primary memory is used for storing the data which are required for processing purpose. So it is used for processing purpose, whereas secondary memory is used for storage purpose. Every computer has limited amount of primary memory, whereas secondary memory the storage capacity is extremely large. Examples of primary memory are RAM, random access memory, and ROM, read only memory. Some of the examples of secondary memory are hard disk, floppy disk, CDs, DVDs and the magnetic tapes. The third unit of any computer is arithmetic logic unit. So already I have covered what is the function of an input unit, what are the different types of input unit, what is memory unit, what are the different functions of memory unit, what are the different types of memory unit. Next one is ALU or short arithmetic logic unit. The arithmetic logic unit performs two types of operation. It could be arithmetic operation like addition, subtraction, etc. ALU can also perform logical operation, for example comparison, etc. In order to do the operation, it has to get the data from the primary memory. But when to access the data and how to access the data, all these things are instructed by the control unit to the arithmetic logic unit. So arithmetic logic unit is always under the control of a control unit. After accessing the data from the primary memory store ಆಗಿರುವಂತ information ನ access ಮಾಡಿದ ನಂತರ ಅದರ ಮೇಲೆ calculations ನ ಮಾಡಿ ಮತ್ತೆ result ನ arithmetic logic unit will send it back to the memory unit only. For example, I want to find the sum of two numbers 10 and 20. First, arithmetic logic unit go to primary memory, take the value 10. Once again go back to primary memory, take the value 20. Then it has to decide which operation it has to perform. Now the operation is addition. So it will add the two number 10 and 20. After adding the two number 10 and 20, it sends the result 30 back to primary memory. The next unit is output unit. If they are after the arithmetic logic unit sends the result of the computation to the primary memory, the information of the primary memory user cannot see, because in the primary memory the information will be in human readable form. ಅದನ್ನು ಮನುಷ್ಯರು ಅರ್ಥ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಳ್ಳೋ ಒಂದು ಮೋಡಲ್ ಇರೋದಿಲ್ಲ. So in that case the information from the primary memory should be transformed to the output unit. ಅದು output unit ಗೆ ಟ್ರಾನ್ಸ್ಫರ್ ಮಾಡಿದ ನಂತರ ನಾವು ಅದನ್ನು human beings we can read it. Some of the examples of output units are printer, plotter, monitor, etc. The information displayed on the printer ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಬರುವಂತ output information we call it as hard copy, while the information which is displayed on the monitor is called as the soft copy. Some of the common output devices are monitor, laser printer, inkjet printer, etc. Laser printer ಅಥವಾ inkjet printer ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಔಟ್ಪುಟ್ ಬಂದಿರೋದಕ್ಕೆ we will call it as a hard copy. It's a plotter. Plotter usually is used to take the printout of large plans, etc. in civil engineering departments. The last unit of any digital computer is the control unit. As the name indicates, ಹೆಸರೇ ಸೂಚಿಸುವಂತೆ it controls all the remaining 4 units of the digital computer. Control unit controls input unit, it controls memory unit, it controls ALU, and also it controls the output unit. It fetch and decodes the instruction. After fetching the instruction, it tells what it has to do, what has to be done to the arithmetic logic unit. It also tells from where the data should be accessed, from where the instruction should be accessed to the arithmetic logic. ಎಲ್ಲಿ ನಮಗೆ ಬೇಕಾಗಿರುವ ಇನ್ಸ್ಟ್ರಕ್ಷನ್ ಯಾವ ಲೊಕೇಶನಲ್ಲಿ ಇದೆ, ನಮಗೆ ಬೇಕಾಗಿರುವ ಡೇಟಾ ಯಾವ ಲೊಕೇಶನಲ್ಲಿ ಇದೆ ಅನ್ನೋದನ್ನು ಅರ್ಥಮೆಟಿಕ್ ಲಾಜಿಕ್ ಯೂನಿಟ್ಗೆ ತಿಳಿಸುವಂಥ ಸಾಧನ ಕಂಟ್ರೋಲ್ ಯೂನಿಟ್. So these 3 units, memory unit, control unit and the arithmetic logic unit, we call it as CPU, also called as central processing unit. The short form we call it as it's a processor because it processes the data, called as the processor in a digital computer. It is one of the powerful microprocessor chip in a computer. Just like human body, the CPU is the brain of the computer. A typical, not really CPU, it's a cabinet. Inside that one, CPU is there. Next, any computer system you take, the different components can be classified into either as a hardware or it is called as a software. ಕಂಪ್ಯೂಟರ್ಲಿ ಇರುವ ಎಲ್ಲ ಸಾಧನಗಳನ್ನು 2 ವಿಧವಾಗಿ ವಿಂಗಡಿಸಬಹುದು. ಒಂದು ಇದನ್ನು ಹಾರ್ಡ್ವೇರ್ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೆ ಅಥವಾ ಇದು ಸಾಫ್ಟ್ವೇರ್. ದ ಪಾರ್ಟ್ಸ್ ದಟ್ ವಿ ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಟಚ್, ಸಿ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಫೀಲ್, ವಿ ಕಾಲ್ ಇಟ್ ಆಸ್ ದ ಹಾರ್ಡ್ವೇರ್ಸ್ ಆಫ್ ದ ಕಂಪ್ಯೂಟರ್ ಆರ್ ದ ಫಿಸಿಕಲ್ ಪಾರ್ಟ್ಸ್ ಆಫ್ ದ ಕಂಪ್ಯೂಟರ್. The physical parts includes mechanical components, magnetic components, electrical components and also electronic components. ಈ ಎಲ್ಲ ಸಾಧನಗಳನ್ನು ನಾವು ಕೈಯಿಂದ ಮುಟ್ಟಬಹುದು. ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್ ಕೀಬೋರ್ಡ್, ಮೌಸ್, ಮಾನಿಟರ್, ಹಾರ್ಡ್ ಡಿಸ್ಕ್, ಫ್ಲಾಪಿ ಡಿಸ್ಕ್, ಎಟ್ಸೆಟ್ರಾ. The set of programs which are used to solve a particular problem, we call it as software. Some of the examples of software are operating system, compilers, game software, etc. A software is a middleman. Data ಮತ್ತು ಹಾರ್ಡ್ವೇರ್ ನಡುವಿನ ಮೀಡಿಯೇಟರ್ ಸಾಫ್ಟ್ವೇರ್. Just like if you consider your audio system, you have your tape recorder, you have your cassettes, you have the wires which connect the computer system to the power supply. So all these are the examples of hardwares of your audio system. The songs inside your audio cassette, we can just feel it, you cannot touch and see. The song is an example for the software. Similarly, if you consider a vehicle, your vehicle is nothing but the hardware. If you want to drive your vehicle, we need some fuel, the petrol. The petrol could be the example of the software. Without software, hardware does not know what to do. Hardwares may be classified as purely input device. Hardware na input device ಅಥವಾ ಔಟ್ಪುಟ್ ಡಿವೈಸ್ ಅಥವಾ ಕೆಲವು ಹಾರ್ಡ್ವೇರ್ಗಳು ಇನ್ಪುಟ್ ಆಗು ಬಿಹೇವ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ, ಅದು ಔಟ್ಪುಟ್ ಆಗು ಬಿಹೇವ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ದಟ್ ಒನ್ ವಿ ಕಾಲ್ ಇಟ್ ಆಸ್ ಎನ್ ಐಒ ಡಿವೈಸ್. The hardware which works only for input purpose, we call it as input IO device, input hardware, input device. Next one is which is used only for output device is output. Next one is which is used for both input output, it is usually used for storing purpose. We call that one as an IO device. Example, keyboard and mouse are used only for input purpose. So they are input hardware devices. Printer, monitor are used for only output purpose. So they are output hardware devices. Whereas your floppy disk, pen drives, hard disk can be used both for input and output operation. You can write new information into your hard disk, at that time it acts as an output device. Whatever information stored in your hard disk, we can read it also, so at that time it acts as an input device. Softwares are basically two types. One is it's a system software or it's an application software. The software which helps in solving a particular user problem, we call it as an application software. Suppose I want to prepare the marks card of a particular student in the university examination. For that one, I should write one suitable program. So that program helps only in preparing the marks card. That will not help in any other way. So that is one example of application software. Similarly, if I want to find the sum of two matrices for science student, in that case, for that one we should write one more program. So that becomes another application software. So the application software varies from problem to problem or user to user. Examples of application softwares are spreadsheet, for example Microsoft Excel, word processor, MS Word, Tally, DTP. Each of these software serves only one purpose. That's why they are called as application softwares or problem oriented softwares. The software which are necessary for the basic functioning of the computer system itself. Without these software, the computer will not do any work at all. So such a software required for the basic operation of a computer, we call it as a system software. For example, if you want to, it's just like the foundation softwares. Suppose you have a foundation, you can either construct a house or you can construct a building or you can construct an apartment. The house, building or the apartment which is constructed over that foundation, we call it as application software, whereas your foundation itself is an example for a system software. System software controls and monitors the different activities of a computer system. System software has nothing to do with the user problem. The manage the resources of a computer system. Examples of system softwares are operating system, compilers, interpreters, etc. I will take up one important software, operating system, in my next slides. In any computer system you take, one software is very essential. Without that software, your system is just a box. It has nothing, it cannot do anything. So that software we call it as an operating system. An operating system acts as an intermediary software between the user and the machine. So it always lies between the user and the machine. If the user wants to work with the computer, then all his communication should take place through the operating system. It's the most essential software in any computer system. Because of the operating system in your computer system, you can use the computer system conveniently. You need not bother about the internal details of your computer system, because these details are hidden from the user with the help of the operating system. Then what are the functions of an operating system? Any computer system you take, it is provided with so many resources. It's just like the car. If you purchase a new car in the market, your car may contain cushion seats, your car may contain audio system, your car may contain so many other facilities. Then what is more important? It's not the facility which is available in the computer is very important. It is the driver is very important. So without the driver, you can think of what happens to your car. So the operating system acts as a driver of a computer system. The operating system manages all the resources of a computer system so that every resources is utilized properly. No resource remains idle. ಸೊ ಯಾವುದೇ ಒಂದು ರಿಸೋರ್ಸ್ನ ಹಾಳಾಗೋದಕ್ಕೆ ನೋಡ್ಕೊಳ್ಳೋಂಥ ಕೆಲಸ ಆಪರೇಟಿಂಗ್ ಸಿಸ್ಟಮ್. To understand the term resource manager, we will take up one very simple example. Assume that in your family there are 3 members. One is a 2-year baby, one 25-year young man and a 90-year old man. On that particular day you have a resource, for example some 12 dosas or 12 chapatis at hand. Then how do you distribute the resource? If you distribute, a baby also gets 4 chapatis, a 25-year young man also gets 4 chapatis and a 90-year old man also will get 4 chapatis. But a 2-year baby cannot eat 4 chapatis. So there the resource is wasted. For a 25-year young man, 4 chapatis may not be sufficient. So there the resources is underutilized. And for a 90-year-old man, again 4 chapatis is wasted. Instead of that one, if you allocate, if you give 2 chapatis to the baby, 5 chapatis to that young man and a 2 chapatis to that old man, we can utilize only 9 chapatis. Still your resource is remaining, 3 chapatis are pending. All of a sudden some unexpected guest arrives, even they can be served. That is the motivation for operating system. It not just distribute the resources, it see that one every resource is utilized properly. Operating system also acts as the interpreter of the command. If the user gives the command, operating system checks whether the command is right or wrong. ನೀವು ಕೊಟ್ಟಿರುವಂತಹ ಕಮಾಂಡ್ ತಪ್ಪಿದ್ರೆ ಆಪರೇಟಿಂಗ್ ಸಿಸ್ಟಮ್ ವಿಲ್ ಇಂಡಿಕೇಟ್ ದಟ್ ನೀವು ಕೊಟ್ಟಿರುವ ಕಮಾಂಡು ಸರಿ ಇಲ್ಲ ಅಂತ ನಮಗೆ ಇಂಡಿಕೇಟ್ ಮಾಡುತ್ತೆ. ನಾವು ಕೊಟ್ಟಿರುವ ಕಮಾಂಡ್ ಸರಿ ಇದ್ದಲ್ಲಿ ಆಪರೇಟಿಂಗ್ ಸಿಸ್ಟಮ್ ಇನ್ಸ್ಟ್ರಕ್ಟ್ ದ ಕಂಪ್ಯೂಟರ್ ಟು ಡೂ ದ ನೆಸೆಸರಿ ವರ್ಕ್. ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ ಒನ್ ಈಸ್ security. In any computer system you take, security is a major problem. The operating system protect one user program from another user program. It also, next one is operating system also acts as accounts manager. Operating system maintains the list of all the resources available in your computer system. It also note down to which user how much resources already allocated. So all these things are maintained by the operating system. That's why we call him as an accounts manager. With the help of operating system, one user can communicate with another user in a multi-user system. So it provides a communication media between multiple users. As I told earlier, nowadays using computer is very simple because in every computer system operating system is there. It provides a user friendly and a convenient environment for the user to work on the computer. Basically there are 2 types of operating system. One is it's a single user operating system or a multi user operating system. ಒಬ್ಬ ಮನುಷ್ಯನಿಗೆ ಉಪಯೋಗಿಸಲು ಸಾಧ್ಯವಾಗುವಂಥ ಆಪರೇಟಿಂಗ್ ಸಿಸ್ಟಮ್ we call it as a single user operating system. Such operating system allows only one person to work on the computer at a time. A multi-user operating system is one which allows multiple users to work on the computer simultaneously. One example of single user operating system is disk operating system or DOS, and an example for multi-user operating system is Unix. Now we will take up some of the features of these 3 major operating system: disk operating system, Unix operating system, and one of the popular operating system, Windows. DOS or disk operating system was developed by Microsoft Corporation. It's also called as MS-DOS, stands for Microsoft disk operating system. Before Windows operating system, the operating system for microcomputer is disk operating system. And in the case of disk operating system, if you want to work with the computer, you should type the command. So you can have a communication with your computer through commands. That's the reason it's called as command line interface operating system. It is basically developed for 16-bit Intel processors. It's one of the oldest operating system and already it's an obsolete one. MS-DOS consisting of 3 component. ಯಾವುದೇ MS-DOS ಆಪರೇಟಿಂಗ್ ಸಿಸ್ಟಮ್ ತಗೊಂಡ್ರೆ ಅದರಲ್ಲಿ 3 ಮುಖ್ಯವಾದ ಫೈಲ್ಗಳಿರುತ್ತೆ. ಮೊದಲನೇದು BIOS, ಬೇಸಿಕ್ ಇನ್ಪುಟ್ ಔಟ್ಪುಟ್ ಸಿಸ್ಟಮ್, ಕರ್ನಲ್ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ command.com. ಈ ಮೂರು ಫೈಲ್ ಒಟ್ಟಿಗೆ ಸೇರಿ that one we call it as disk operating system or MS-DOS. Why it's called disk operating system andre, the entire operating system you can keep it in one floppy disk. So the operating system size was very small and it is developed by Microsoft. These are the different features of disk. It's a text based operating system. So everything the user has to type the command. If you want to know the today's date, you have to type DATE. If you want to know the time, you have to type the command TIME. I will take up the commands of DOS in the next slide. The operating system size was very small, so that we can keep the entire operating system in one floppy disk itself. But it is designed for one person. That's why it's a single user. At the same time, the operating system can do only one work at a time. So it's called as single user, single tasking operating system, and mainly developed for microcomputers or personal computers, and no security in the case of disk operating system. Reason is it is designed for only one person, so security is not a major problem for in the case of disk operating system. And this operating system does not support graphics. So if you have any graphical applications like cartoon watching or play games etc., then disk operating system is not a suitable operating system. I told earlier, the disk operating system basically consists of only 3 files: BIOS, basic input output system, kernel and command.com. The first one, BIOS, contains the drivers etc., which so that it's just like it isolates the operating system from the hardware point of view. And operating system major function is resource management. The management of the various resources like memory management, processor management, file management etc. is taken care by the second file called kernel. Another important function of operating system is command interpreter. The operating system checks whether the command is right or wrong. If it is right, it tells the computer to do that work. If the command is wrong, then it will tell the user that the command itself is wrong. So that function is taken care by command.com. So disk operating system major drawback is it's a command based operating system. For every work you should, for every small task also you should write the command. ಪ್ರತಿಯೊಂದು ಕೆಲಸಕ್ಕೂ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಕಮಾಂಡ್ ಅನ್ನು ಟೈಪ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಆ ಕಮಾಂಡ್ ಮೂಲಕ ಆಪರೇಟಿಂಗ್ ಸಿಸ್ಟಮ್ ಫಂಕ್ಷನ್ಸ್ ಮಾಡಬಹುದು. ಸೊ ದೇರ್ ಆರ್ 2 types of command. One is it's an internal command or it could be an external command. The major difference between an internal command and the external command, internal command ಗೂ ಮತ್ತು external command ಗೂ ವ್ಯತ್ಯಾಸ ಏನಂದ್ರೆ internal command can be executed if all the internal commands are stored in the primary memory, whereas the external command are stored in the secondary storage device. These are the some of the internal commands of DOS, CLS. So whenever you type the command, then it will clear the screen. Whatever content that is already there in your screen, it get erased. So once again your prompt appears. So CLS stands for clearing the screen. If you want to know today's date and time, then the command is DAT, type DATE and press the enter key. So after typing any command, you have to press the enter key. Then the command automatically goes to the operating system. Next, mkdir or short form is MD. This command is used to create a new directory. I have given one example also. Here mkdir Manju creates a directory called Manju. If you want to delete a file, the command is del. If you want to copy one content of one file to another file, you can give the command copy, COPY, first file name man.c to sun.c, means the content of man.c file is completely transferred into sun.c. Now you have your file in two different files. If you want to change the name of the file, the command is rename man.c space woman.c, means the file name man.c is changed to woman.c. If you want to change your directory, the command is cd. If you want to display the content of the file, then type the command type x.txt, means whatever information that is stored in the file x.c will be displayed on your monitor. Next, every DOS has a version. To know the version of your DOS, you give the command ver. Next command is dir, that stands for directory. It shows the list of all the files stored in the particular directory. Next, external commands are those commands that can be executed if you have additional file. For every one external command, you should have one additional file in your secondary storage. Some of the examples of external commands are format. This command prepares the disk for usage by creating sectors and tracks. So whatever information that is stored in your file will get erased. Check disk checks whether that content of two files are one and the same or not. So now we will conclude the current session. Now I have discussed about the functions of all the remaining units in your computer, what is hardware, what is software, different categories of hardware, different categories of software, functions of the operating system, and some of the commands of disk operating system. In my next lecture, I will continue with the features of Windows operating system and also the features of Unix operating system. Thank you.